It's been 6 years since we all heard the devastating news of Caitlyn the dog. But 6 years later, she's doing well and living her best life, according to her owner, Ted Corvey of Corvey Law Firm. I talked one-on-one with Ted about Caitlyn for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Ted Corvey, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Hey, Quintin, good to see you.
Oh, likewise. Let me just jump right into it. Obviously, you are an attorney here in Charleston. You're a former Charleston County prosecutor. And of course, you're the owner, obviously, Caitlyn the dog's owner. And I didn't realize this, but I think this week marks 6 years since Caitlyn the dog actually arrived at the Charleston Animal Society.
That's right. 6 years yesterday was the anniversary of her coming into the Animal Society.
Who is Caitlyn 6 years later?
A very, very happy and loving and incredibly sweet. My wife and I are incredibly happy and lucky to have her in our lives. She's makes us laugh and needs a lot of attention, and we're just really lucky to have her.
And I know, according to WCIV, she came in with nearly 9 layers of electrical tape wrapped around her swollen muzzle. How is she physically?
Well, I think it was actually 12, but physically she's great. I mean, we'll always have the scars on her muzzles, but really, from a physical standpoint, doesn't really have any limitations. She did have to have some work done to her tongue, so she's a little bit of a messy water drinker, but besides that, she's great.
That is amazing. And I know today Caitlyn can be found playing puppy tug-of-war with her brother and sister, Lucy and Sully, according to Channel 4. Who is Caitlyn around her brothers and sisters?
Incredibly sweet. Our Sullivan is a dachshund and is the baby of my wife and I's family, and he terrorizes her, and she just adores him. And Lucy's kind of our elder stateswoman, so to speak, and Caitlyn's very patient and sweet with her, and so she adores them and gets along great with them.
Oh, that's amazing. And how did she get to have the brother and sister? When did she get them, I should say?
So we had them when she came into our home. So Sullivan was still a puppy, and Lucy, my wife, and I've had for quite some time. So they adopted her, so to speak.
Hey, and what got you, Ted, from actually prosecuting that case to now being the owner of Caitlyn the dog?
Honestly, blind luck. I remember after her abuser was sentenced, because we did his plea hearing and his sentencing hearing on different dates, I went up to the Animal Society and spent some time with Kay Hyman and Aldwin Roman up there and Caitlyn, and I kind of assumed, I might not get a chance to see her again. I had a lot of opportunity to interact with her during while that case was still going on, and we had a great day. But then, it was probably 6 months later. I know that they were looking to find a permanent home for her, and it was just something that had kind of came up organically. I think Aldwin, I was up working on another cruelty case at the Animal Society. Met with Aldwin Roman, and he mentioned that they were looking, and I think he kind of caught the look on my face, and then asked, well, is the thing you and your wife may be interested in? And I of course was. I always had a really great relationship with her from the first moment I met her, and thought she was such a special and sweet dog. But I went home kind of ready to ask my wife with her to say no, and she was all for it. So home she came relatively soon, and it was a perfect time for us too, because I'd had a dog that been with me since college who was starting to be in failing health, and we lost him, and so she really came into our life right at the perfect time.
At the perfect time. And I know at the time you said, I was worried about whether or not we were able to get a conviction. So to end up getting to that point and get justice for her was great. A great achievement for everyone involved. What else still plays in your mind when you think back to that case and obviously the ultimate conviction of this particular person?
Well, I don't think about the conviction of the person as much, but that was a tough case. We had, again, I've always been complimentary of the work. North Charleston Police Department did an amazing job investigating that case and did certainly everything that they could. But in many cases, the evidence doesn't always fall in your lap, and we were going to have to rely on some witness testimony in that case that I think would have been difficult. And so we were on the eve of trial before he decided to plead guilty, and I was nervous. I knew it would be a high profile case, and definitely didn't feel like it was a slam dunk. So getting to resolve it and getting justice for her was great. But for me now, 6 years later, it also is, I mean, she's still such a symbol of animal cruelty and animal abuse. And her story went, so far widespread, I think, to get a great result and to end up with this person being in prison, not just on the cruelty charge, but on other charges for an extended period of time, was a great victory for animal cruelty, and trying to prevent it and trying to nip it in the bud. So, really more than anything, that's really what I think about, just that I think her story allowed certain states, including South Carolina and in just locally here in the Charleston area, for an opportunity to open other people's eyes to how prevalent this issue is and for it to be taken more seriously. And so I think it was a great achievement for Caitlyn, the Charleston Animal Society, our community, but more so just for animal rights, period.
And how do you hope to tell her story 5, 10 years from now to stop this type of animal cruelty?
Well, I always want to look at it as positive. So, I mean, her story is ultimately a happy one. I mean, she was not very old when this happened. As best we could estimate, about 15 months. And so very much still a puppy. And, despite how horrible her injuries were, she was able to come through it and is now truly living her best life. So, I mean, first and foremost, it's a great success and story and a story of perseverance, because she could have very easily not made it, but fought through and always, is always happy to see friendly faces and is very happy to see everybody, almost too happy. We have an issue with her being over aggressive with her kisses and jumping on people. But, so, I mean, that's really the message that I want people to know about, that, bad things can happen. You can certainly persevere them. And I know just from anecdotally people who have said to me, and I know Kay Hyman at the Animal Society shared some stories with me, that she's been such a great symbol for people who've gone through abuse, not just in the animal context, but people as well. And so I just hope that she can remain to be a symbol for hope for anybody who's going through really tough times. And on the animal side of things, again, I hope that she can be a symbol to try to bring much more change that is needed and much more progress that we need to make in that realm.
If you could go up to Columbia right now, what change would you make?
Gosh, I wasn't expecting that one. That's a great question. I guess limiting it solely to just, animal cruelty prosecution, I really think that they need to take a long, hard look at our current existing animal cruelty statutes. The thing that I found as a prosecutor addressing those issues really difficult was animal cruelty comes in all shapes and sizes. You deal with a lot of neglect cases, and really, although they get a lot of headlines, the really notable and the high-profile cruelty cases where you have an animal that's horrifyingly abused, like Caitlyn and others, are not as common. And so I think prosecutors and our animal control officers around the state really need a lot more ammunition to try to combat this issue. And also, I think we need to understand that a lot of this is an education problem. People are unaware of what they should do or unaware of what resources are out there for them to help. And so, in light of that, I really think the goal should be in any kind of criminal prosecution or criminal statute to try to rehabilitate and stop the problem from happening in the future, right? And so, from that standpoint, I really think we need to readdress the laws that we're looking at, come up with common sense laws to put in place that can be effective for prosecutors to try to prosecute these cases, and for animal control officers and law enforcement officers to enforce them, but also really to try to create a lot more educational opportunities for people who may have found themselves in an incident that's not purposeful cruelty, but just training for people to understand that there's help out there and they shouldn't be treated all this way.
Ted Corvey, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you so much, Quintin. Always a pleasure.
Likewise.
Great to see you.
You too.